Today we bring you the story of Swami Pushya, a journey that began with a restless spirit and a search for meaning. From leaving school to finding peace in nature to discovering fulfillment through spiritual practice. Swami Pushya's life transformed in remarkable ways. His path took him from everyday struggles to a life of devotion and service within the Isha ashram. When I was 6 years of age, I would escape from school, go to an abandoned graveyard close by, and sit under a tree just to look at nature and the ruins. After being caught a few times, my father took me out of that school and put me in another school nearby, under the care of a teacher who was known to the family. I underwent schooling under his close monitoring, but I often used to wonder why I had to do this. I just couldn't align myself with the strictness and the abusiveness of convent schools at that time. Unable to escape the system, I became rebellious and sometimes resorted to aggression. By the time I was in 6th standard, I started to get severe attacks of migraine also, something which continued throughout my academic life. Because of my unruly behavior, I was asked to leave the school in 9th standard. My father insisted that I continue my studies on my own. Since I had the freedom to learn at my own pace now and it didn't seem like an imposition, I sat for the state board examinations as a private student and cleared it with good scores. I then rejoined school in the 11th standard where I chose history as my subject. This time there was less struggle within me, but still education never held my interest. On the outside, I was a happy person, but a vacuum was growing within me as the years were passing by. However, there were also times when I tasted life in an exuberant way. It left me with experiences that I couldn't understand. One such phase of my life was when I joined the National Service Scheme. The sheer intensity of training and the purposeful existence it offered captivated me immensely. Sometimes during the NSS camps at the end of the day while eating, I would find tears simply flowing from my eyes. After completing my graduation, I was neither interested in further studies nor in taking up any work. Once a cousin of mine asked me to take an Isha yoga class. Though I had agreed reluctantly, the class had a profound effect on me. I would say it was a turning point in my life. I remember asking the teacher after the class if I could go with them wherever they were going next. "You do your practice regularly and then we'll see," the teacher replied gently. I did my kriya regularly and it made me ecstatic. I found that life felt so much duller if I skipped it even for a day. Later, I came to the ashram to do the Bhava Spandana program. I felt so high in the class that at times it became difficult to handle me. I was just ecstatic. I saw Jesus in Sadhguru and in everyone. On the closing day, I shared before the class and to Sadhguru about my experience of Jesus during the program. The sadhana continued and my desire to come and stay in the ashram was growing by the minute. Since I am from a Christian background, I knew it would be difficult for my parents to allow me to come and stay here. Though my father is very open-minded, he didn't appreciate the idea of me moving to an ashram. My mother was somewhat fine with it. With some struggle and tact, I managed to come to the ashram full time in September 2003. My joy knew no bounds. For the first time in my life, I saw a road to happiness ahead. One time I was handling the small stall we used to have in the ashram just outside the Dhyanalinga. We used to sell 5-6 items like vegetable puff and carrot cake. You can still find these today at the Pepper Wine Eatery. Toothbrushes, toothpaste and toilet paper rolls for people's convenience. Standing there, I would watch Swami Abhipada tirelessly receiving the visitors. I remember on my first Mahashivratri, I saw him standing and greeting them through the night. And until I closed the stall at around noon the day after Mahashivratri, when I came after a few hours of napping, he was still there. It was so inspiring. The next Mahashivratri, I was initiated into Brahmacharya. My parents also came to see me after the initiation. Brahmacharya initiation shifted something fundamental within me. Actually, one thing that I couldn't handle after starting yoga was sitting cross-legged. All my life, I hadn't sat on the floor. After coming to the ashram, it was very painful for me to sit cross-legged for even more than 20 minutes. I somehow sat with a lot of pain for the 7 days of Samyama and was never inclined to sit long hours after that. When I came to know that as part of the pre-initiation sadhana, I would need to sit cross-legged for many days. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do this, but not seeing any other choice, I went with it. I sat and sat and sat. After a day or two, I lost track of time and in many ways of space also. At some point in the night, I got up, my knees had tightened and I had to drag myself to the toilet. I fell down there. Not out of tiredness or fainting, but because I was not able to bear the intensity of my experience. It lasted for a few minutes. Then I brushed away the experience and continued my sadhana. The next day was our initiation. In the morning, we went to a place near a stream. I saw Sadhguru's feet coming towards us. One by one, we went near him for a certain process. When my turn came, I sat in front of him and a huge sense of devotion arose within me. Overwhelmed, I touched his feet for the first time in my life. Never before in my life had I even bowed down to anything. When my father took me to church for my baptism, I refused to bow down to the priest. So bowing down now was very strange for me. But an even stranger transformation was yet to come. During the initiation, we were all in a small room with Sadhguru. I had severe pain in my legs and aches all over my body. Once again, we were called in turns to go to him for our initiation. After Sadhguru finished the initiation process and I came back to sit in my place without knowing why, I screamed Shiva. The next thing I knew, my entire being was reverberating with the sound Shiva. I had not allowed myself to even utter this word till then. Though I had been in the ashram for so long and had spent the last few days in intense Brahmacharya sadhana for the initiation process. For me, Sadhguru was Jesus and I always related to him in that context. But now here I was. Every bone in my body was soaked in ecstasy and each cell was screaming Shiva, Shiva. The experience was so beautiful that I didn't try to logically analyze it. I didn't remember if I had the pain anymore or not. Nothing mattered. For the next 6 months, I was in some other world. The Shiva chant was on all the time, and I was filled with bliss, one could say, of the divine. I was so much into it that I was incapable of activity. Slowly it settled down, and my journey in the kitchen started. I was part of the kitchen activity for nearly 3 years initially. I began with making salads and special diets for the patients under the guidance of Swami Vibodha. Being engaged in kitchen activities is exhaustingly fulfilling. After some months of being in this activity, it felt like a world of its own. On many days, once I entered the kitchen after morning sadhana, I would not even step out until late in the night. The most surprising part of this activity was that people appreciated the salad and soups that I concocted, including Sadhguru. Coming back to kitchen activity, I was really open-minded and truly enjoyed cooking in the first 6 months of starting this activity. Then I slowly started becoming rigid and critical of many things. I used to point out many things that I thought Swami Vibodha could do better. For example, reducing the food wastage. It was only when I was made in charge of the kitchen activities that I truly understood what it took to run the Isha kitchen. I realized how tough a decision it was to estimate how many people to cook for. Sometimes I would get overwhelmed with the demands of this activity and resist yielding to the specific and unusual food requirements of different programs or initiatives. For example, for the closing day moonlight dinner of one of the programs, the coordinator requested us to serve hot dosa fresh off the tawa for everyone. I thought that was a crazy idea. But Swami Vibodha never saw anything as impossible. We devised a way of installing the stove in the Spanda hall so that everyone could enjoy a hot dosa. Though on one level, it was an exhilarating experience, on the other hand, kitchen activity was very taxing. Sometimes I would feel very low and stressed during those days. Swami Vibhu would come and check on me. Besides him, there are so many Brahmacharis who have supported me on the way. Even now, if I feel a bit entangled in something or need some guidance, I just go to the another Brahmachari in the Sangha, and I have a willing heart and ears. After the maintenance activity a few years ago, I had the opportunity to serve Dhyanalinga when I had just moved to the Dhyanalinga department. Sadhguru took a tour of the whole premises with the entire team. When he asked for the department lead, I went up to him. "It is our heart, Swami. Take care of it," he said with hands folded to us. I stood there overwhelmed. After that, the team tried to fix many things that Sadhguru wanted us to. For the convenience of the visitors, knowing that for Sadhguru, ashram aesthetics are equally important as ashram expenses, I would spend many days thinking through the solutions. I put a table outside the Surya Kund to watch the movements of devotees and observe what problems they were facing. Slowly we started building many things so visitors would not need to walk on a hot surface and would feel safe about leaving their valuables at the counter. We also made sure there were enough signs, water outlets, information points, etc. Among other things, I feel very inspired that we replaced the rope barriers which Sadhguru didn't want with a subtle bamboo fence to direct the visitors' movement. Recently, I was asked to join the Isha Samskriti team. Just be with the Samskriti students, Sadhguru told me. It seemed like life had come full circle. From being one of the most difficult children to handle to now having to be a source of inspiration for children of every kind of disposition. I am thoroughly enjoying being a student again, but a willing one this time. For me, this path, this journey offers me everything that I am looking for, consciously or unconsciously. There could have been no better way to live.